the fact that categories are so important to customers means that it will always, now and forever, be central to how you define what your company is doing.
Hey. On this episode of B2B Marketing with me, Dave Gerhardt, my guest is Josh Lowman. He's the founder of Goldfront. They're a category design studio. We talked about this hot topic of category creation in B2B marketers.
How are we going to name our category something different than one of our competitors, and you don't have a case for how the product is actually categorically different than that competitor, then it just falls into that like trendy category creation area.
Should you create a category or not? Why to do it? Common mistakes, lessons, learnings. Plus, we got into a whole topic at the end about personal life, personal development, mental health.
The right brain sees the world alive. It's energetic, it's holistic, it's vibey, it's magical, it's ineffable. You can't really quite put words to it.
Josh just got back from a month-long meditation retreat. We talk about that, plus everything you want to know about creating a category. Here's my conversation with Josh Lowman.
1, 2, 3, 4. Exit.
It's so nice to see you.
It's good to see you too, man.
Yeah.
So what the heck is your backstory? So you, by the way, is your name Lowman? Josh Lowman?
It's Josh Lowman.
The Josh Lowman. So you run a company called Goldfront?
I own a company called Goldfront. Goldfront is a category design studio in San Francisco.
And how long have you been doing that?
It'll be 12 years in December.
12 years. So that was 2013. Not many people were talking about category creation.
Yeah, we weren't talking about category creation at that time much. We were mostly, we came out as a creative studio. Yeah, that was our category when we started. We came out as a creative studio, and we happened to have a lot of experience and connections in kind of the tech world. So out of the gate, we started doing stuff for like Stripe and Uber and companies like that. So we kind of like built up this reputation for working for tech companies. And it wasn't until we wrote the category POV for Qualtrics and then we did one for Newsella, and we kept doing a number of these category strategy engagements. It wasn't until about 2020 that we repositioned as a category design studio.
And did you come up like as a creative director, designer? You just give me that vibe, so I don't.
Yeah. Okay. So I came out of school in the 90s, and I was like, I'm never getting a job. I'm going to be an artist. I'm going to write and direct movies. And then I procrastinated, and I never got anything done. And then I was like terrified that I was going to be a waiter for the rest of my life. Not that there's anything wrong with that. And so I went through the yellow pages to find jobs, and I got a job as a digital designer, even though I didn't know what I was doing. And immediately I started designing websites. So I came up as a designer, moved to San Francisco because Wired magazine told me it was the center of the digital revolution. So I moved to San Francisco in 96, part of the whole .com boom and bust, and did a bunch of really like interesting digital projects at that time. And at a certain point, I was like, my heart tells me that I'm a writer. Like I was like, maybe I can't be good enough as a designer. Maybe I'm actually a writer. So I switched over entirely to being a writer on like the traditional side of advertising. And I came up through that whole thing of writing TV spots and stuff like that. And then I just kind of like merged all these worlds of design, digital, traditional. And at a certain point, and I was starting to shoot videos. And at a certain point, I was like, God, I'm like a generalist to a fault, but I need like one flag to fly over all this stuff that I'm doing. And I was like, okay, I need to start a company. And that was Goldfront.
Why'd you call it Goldfront?
I wrote names for like a year. And at a certain point, I just took the words gold front, the grills.
I was wondering if that was like Goldfront seems like a rapper, like
yeah. And I just took the S off, and I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. It's like a cold, instead of a cold front, it's a gold front, and it's about like gold records and success, and and it's just like there was an agency called Funny Garbage at the time. And I was like, I want a name like that, something that sounds kind of like nonsense. And I shared it with like a good friend. He was like, that's it. So
Now it's like this crazy game of like, you have to have a good idea for a name, and then you go to GoDaddy and you're like, God damn it, there's no domains available. And so it's so great to have just a phrase with like simple wording. Like when I named Exit 5, Exit 5 is the only good name I've ever come up with. Everything else I've named literally. I hosted a podcast interviewing founders in Boston in 2014. It was called Tech in Boston. The first iteration of Exit 5 was called DGMG, which is Dave Gerhardt Marketing Group.
I
And
remember.
then,
I was there.
yeah, I know. And then Exit 5 was like, I was talking to Harry Dry, who does marketingexamples.com. He's amazing. And he was like, you can name things literal or lateral. So literal would be like Tech in Boston, right? Or lateral is basically like what you did with Goldfront or Exit 5, which is basically you kind of come up with a concept and then you revisionist history tell your story into that. And so it's like,
Right.
I didn't wake up in the middle of the night and like had this vision for Exit 5. I was trying to like think of a good name for it, and then you come up with a story that you can tell. And even like working with founders in the past, like in consulting and advising, I'm like, how can we kind of retell the story of your company so we can like lean into the name and give it more meaning, even if that's not like the idea that you had from the beginning. It's such a fun thing. Okay, so then fast forward. So all right, that's great, super helpful context. I don't want to. We don't need to I'm sure there's a separate podcast that we would need to be like drinking a scotch or something and hearing all of your stories from the late '90s, early 2000s in San Francisco. But the reason that I wanted to have you on this podcast is to talk about this topic of category creation, because I think if you were to make a list of maybe 3 to 5 of the hottest topics over the last couple of years in the world of the people who listen to this podcast, I would say that category creation is one of them. And it's also the most commonly contested, or there's the most objections.
There's
Yeah.
most tension around this. Yeah.
Yeah. There's some reasons for that I don't need to get into on this pod, but
Well, why not? Let's
no,
get
like
into
there's
it.
just more like personalities and personal, not about the concept of category creation.
see.
But I think that there's a take that like the only way to win is if you create a category. And I don't believe in that. Like the sandwich shop down the street from me, she runs a great place and they make great sandwiches, and everyone in my town goes there, and she didn't once think about creating a category.
Man, it's crazy. I think of the sandwich shop down the road from me in the exact same context. Like when I'm thinking about a category, I'm like, well, they didn't create a category. They're great.
So do you agree with my take, or do you have a way to frame
totally
that?
With it. I agree totally with it. Yeah.
Now, that said, though, if you are building something large, ambitious, like many of the founders you work with, many of the people that listen to this space, they work for those companies. If you're a founder that is out to build a, world-changing, life-changing, billion-dollar revenue, big exit type of company, then yes, I would argue that most of the time to have one of those exits, you need to have created a category. The third kind of thing of this, though, is like it is much harder today than ever, I think, at least, to create a category, because so many names have been taken. Something I want to get into to you. And so then I'll shut up in a second. But then basically, like, but if I try to just like block the term category creation, and I just think about like from a marketing fundamentals and principles standpoint, like whether we call it category creation, whether we call it positioning, I'm sure you have a different definition for that. Like, is having a strong point of view about your company in the market like the most important ingredient in marketing? I would say yes, if I could pick one thing. And I don't do consulting anymore, but when I was, and I still talk to founders now just to take calls every now and then, the number one area that I think most companies are lacking is a differentiator. And so anyway, all of those things are like, yeah, I'd love to have you on and riff on this topic. And I hope people, hang up at the end of this episode and, finish your run or whatever you're doing, and you're like, all right, I feel better about categories. So that's not a question, but I'm just curious to hear your reaction to any of those things I said.
I think that's all spot on. I just think almost like I am thinking almost the same thing, and I want to go deep into some of this stuff so I can tell everybody how I think of it.
Okay, so I actually have up this I have this category blueprint that you guys put out a while ago, and I saved it because I think it's very useful, and maybe we can start here. And so, lesson
Can I
number
see
one
it?
is what?
Can I see it?
Yeah. This is how I am. I was on a call with somebody and they're like, yeah, I got your book Founder Brand up. And they're like, so on page 3, on page 33, you said this. And I'm like, I just put it in the chat of our Zencaster to you. But number one is like why most strategy. So why does most category creation fail? Is that a good place to start? Or how about when and why should you create a category?
Okay, wait. Now, I got a good place to start.
Okay.
Let me take the mic. Okay.
Please.
All right. So, man, strategy is it's pretty inaccessible. Like it's kind of like when I was in college, I thought about philosophy. I was like, oh, philosophy is like something that smart people know about, but like I probably can't figure that out. But then I had a roommate, Mike Ehrmantraut, who like wore all black and listened to The Cure and smoked unfiltered cigarettes, and all he did was do philosophy like all day long, right? Read and write philosophy. And one day he told me like, well, philosophy is really just trying to answer the question, what is a good life? And as soon as I heard that, I was like, oh, God, that's great. Like I can understand philosophy now. And in a way, his definition of philosophy is almost like this. It's almost like my definition of strategy. The question is, what is a good company? Or you could say, what is a good professional life? So if we start with just a professional life, like what is a good professional life? I would define it as you're happy and you're irreplaceable. Like that's the best that you could get, right? So Dave says to, at Drift, you're like, hey, I want $5,000 more a year. And they just go, well, you're kind of replaceable, so we'll just get rid of you and put somebody else in your place, right? So that would be a big problem.
No, what happened was I asked for more. I asked for more money and they said yes. And I was like, damn it, I should have asked for like way more than that.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And I think you've done a really good job at getting into that world where the sense is that you're irreplaceable. Right? It's the same thing for companies. Companies are just a group of people. So the goal of a company should be the people are happy enough and you have a product that's irreplaceable. And every company has their product on a spectrum of how replaceable versus irreplaceable are we. And you should try to get as far towards irreplaceable as possible. So a commodity like corn or eggs is totally replaceable. And hopefully these big tech startups that are trying to create a $100 billion category are making something that's really irreplaceable, or they're going to have a problem.
So a lot of people talk about vitamin versus painkiller, but you like this concept of irreplaceable. How to be irreplaceable?
Yeah, vitamin versus painkiller, it's fine, but it's not that material. If I'm a writer or a designer or a marketer and I'm like trying to work on something, I can look at every single thing that we do and go, does this get us closer to the sense that our product is irreplaceable or further away from it?
Nice. I love this. Man, this is what I love. I like when we can simplify things into.
Yeah, exactly. Because you have a community that some of them are just people are just kind of starting out in marketing, right? I don't want any of those people to think like strategy is something that just like smart people do and like it's too intellectual, and it shouldn't be that at all. It's just like, hey, how can we make our customer believe that this product is irreplaceable? And that has to do with the mind of the customer. So it's really important that we frame all of that as like what needs to happen in the mind of the customer in order for that to be true.
Strategy is everything. The more I've gone into my career, it's like, I used to just kind of roll my eyes at that. It's just like a, Harvard Business Review type of article, but it really is. And show me a company with this, for example, this concept of like, how do you be irreplaceable? This can't just happen in the marketing room. It's got to be like product engineering, roadmap, all of these things have to be aligned around this.
Yeah. I mean, once you just start to think about how do we get the customer in their mind to think that we were irreplaceable, it gets rid of all of these divisions around departments in your company. Because you're like, well, the product has to do this, and the marketing has to do this, and the customer service has to do this. And as long as you're thinking about the mind of the customer and that you want them to think it's irreplaceable, you no longer think in terms of silos. Okay, so so that's just my way of setting the scene to say that like category does not really matter unless it's just in the context of hey, it's a really good way to become irreplaceable. So the best way that I know of to become irreplaceable on an ongoing basis is to be number one in the category. There's like a very special thing that happens in the mind of the customer when they're interested in a category and you are number one. They will gravitate towards you just because you're considered number one. And
And that's a
so,
timeless marketing principle, right? I think 22 Immutable Laws of Marketing by Reese and
yes,
Trout is number
yes,
one, is the law of leadership, right?
yeah.
I don't want to take you off wherever you're going, but this is where, okay, got it. I'm with you. I'm with you. I'm with you. This is where it breaks for me. Maybe I'm not good enough at this exercise, and I'm sure you guys have a process, but then it's like, okay, but what is the Well, we are the AI generated slide deck, Gamma, right? Gamma's they make slide, it's an AI slide generation tool. So is their mission to be the number one AI generated slide generation tool? Like, I've worked with founders before, we get so because the big category, because you can't just come out and be like CRM is our category anymore.
Actually, before we talk about this, I just want to say one more thing about category. So if you want to become number one in a category, there's essentially four ways that you can do that. You could create a new category. You could transform an existing category like Tesla did with the electric car or like iPhone did with the smartphone, right? You could transform the category so that you become number one. You could niche down like, LinkedIn is a niche of a social network, or you could solo, and solo is kind of like really special where you could kind of like try to do every single little thing a little bit differently. And even if you're in a rational category that everybody says like, oh, it's kind of in this category, everybody knows that you're completely different. So an example of that would be Notion. Or like everything Notion does is like different, even if you're like, oh, it's a project management tool or whatever it is. So
Okay.
in that case, Notion is a category of one. So let me tease this out. So like in the way that I see it, there's a difference between sort of the rational category that people call it and the actual category, which is the category as it is in people's minds. So to understand, and sometimes they're the same thing, like CRM maybe, but if to like share this idea, I could use an example of two companies. One is Drift. And so in that scenario, this is all subjective. So this is my take on it, right? In that scenario, okay, Drift's this hot company. They're doing amazing. They created this category. But I think in the customer's mind, they were like, well, it's like intercom. Yeah. So the category for the customer is whatever they think of intercom and Drift. It's like, that's the actual category for the customer. Just because you named a category doesn't mean that actually was the leader of a category. The customer has to think you're categorically different from intercom in order for them to create a category in their minds.
Yeah. And this was actually one of the big challenges in doing this was no matter what we or intercom did, those things all bucketed at the time was under live chat. It was a live chat tool, and there was live chat for in-app, there was live chat for support. We tried to be the first to come out and say we're the only ones doing this for marketing. Today you might call it chatbots, but yes, you're spot on.
Okay. And so that is the problem with the way B2B marketing, the B2B marketing world thinks of category, is that the B2B marketing world generally thinks of like what you guys did with Drift as category creation, but you didn't actually create a category. In the mind of the customer, you were number two in the live chat category. You tried to create a category, but it didn't work out, right? Or here's another example. And I'm sorry to bring that up because I love everything you do, but okay, that didn't work out. But so here's another example. Clay. I don't think Clay considers themselves like creating a category, but they are. If you use Clay, there is nothing like Clay, right? So in your mind, it's like, that is a category. That is a totally new thing. And you're like, well, what is the category? You're putting it together in your mind. Well, it's kind of like a spreadsheet, but it's got AI and it has all these APIs, all these other services. And you create the category, whether there's a name for it or not. And so the reason why they've succeeded is because they actually have created a category. They just didn't name it. And so people just go, oh, it's that. They kind of, in their mind, they're like, oh, clay, it's like a new category.
Right. So, do you think do they need to name it to make it a thing, or is it like you've
It
won
would
if you've?
help. It would help, but it's not the most important part. The most important part is that the product is categorically different, and you get in the mind of the customer, it tips into that realm of like, oh, I can't really put this into a bucket. It's not really like Apollo. It's not really like I can't put it in a bucket anywhere.
I guess like your Notion example makes sense too there, because it's like you don't just think of Notion. You know, when you think of Notion, you don't think workplace productivity. You're like, I'm planning a wedding in Notion, right? Notion is my to-do list. And then it's also kind of replaced Google Docs at my company. Yeah.
So in your mind, it just goes into the Notion category, right? And like, that's a very good place to be.
But like in the clay example though, that is so, it's not just like marketing didn't like put a spin on this to create a category. It is like they fundamentally built a new thing that can be number one in a new category.
That's right. Like so much of it is, hey, what are you doing with the product? But then marketing, they came out with this thing where we're going to like promote people's clay recipes. I think that's been a big piece of their marketing. Is they find other people that are using clay and they help them promote their clay recipes on LinkedIn or whatever. And so, that's maybe a way that their marketing is supporting the idea that there's nothing like it.
I asked ChatGPT, I said, what would Don Draper say about category creation in B2B marketing? He'd probably light a cigarette, take a long drag and say, you're not creating a category, you're creating a feeling. The category is just the box that they put it in after they believe.
Yeah. So I think that's essentially like, if you see all the like flame wars or whatever on LinkedIn about category creation, I think what people are really saying, the people that don't like category creation, basically saying like, we don't like fake category creation. Like you took something that's in an existing category, you called it a new category, and then you're like, ta-da, we're a new category, but it actually isn't.
Oh yeah, they hate that. And then there's always this like, look at marketers renaming marketing things again and again and again and again. That's why any of the pushback on the conversational marketing thing was like, yeah, they just name it something. There's inbound marketing and there's outbound marketing and there's conversational marketing.
Yeah. I mean, at Drift, you had me. I was like, oh my God, this company, they're going to tear it up. This new category is really exciting. Yeah, you kind of did it there for a while. So let's talk about what category is Exit 5. So this is what I think. Okay, being a super fan, you guys call yourselves a B2B marketing community, right? But I don't think that really says it in the mind of the customer. And I'm a member of this community. I think what happens in the mind of your customer is it's the Dave Gerhardt community. Your brand is so strong and you have a very unique way of doing everything. So I think people are going, oh, this is the Dave Gerhardt community. And so if you wanted to, and that's a category of one, you don't need to call it that. It just is obviously that. So if you want to continue down the road of becoming more irreplaceable, what I would do is, as much as you can, double down on that. And what that means is obviously you don't want to have to be like in the community chatting 24 hours a day, because that would drive you crazy. But like, can you create features and events that have like the DNA of DG? So like if I'm in the Circle community and you go, oh, we have this new feature, it's like this. And I go, oh, that's so like in line with like how DG does things. That's how you build, that's strategically how you build the category.
So I would agree with you, but I also think like in the evolution of the company, I think, and I want to riff on this. I'm not saying that you're right or wrong, but I think that yes, that is what the differentiator has been today, which is like, I created this thing. I'm the tastemaker of this thing. If you believe in what I've done and you believe in how I think, then you are more likely to start this, to come in. And if you look at analysis of our members, most of them come from LinkedIn and they reference either listening to this podcast or following me on LinkedIn. However, since deciding to create a real business around this, meaning beyond a company of one, right? I would like Exit 5 to elevate beyond Dave Gerhardt and maybe there's a founder's story, and I'm the person who started the company and made it the way it is. But we had an event in Boston a couple weeks ago, Josh, and people were like lining up to like shake hands with Danielle because they know her and she writes a newsletter and they see her, and they know Dan and they know Matt. And I feel like, especially in the last 6 months to a year, the Exit 5 brand is carrying more weight than just like the Dave Show. And also, I'm intentionally trying to make a company that's not the Dave Show. I don't want to be Gary Vee. I don't want to build the like, consulting funnel business. I want Exit 5 to stand on its own as a professional community for B2B marketers. And maybe the initial, the DNA though is started by me. And so therefore that community is going to be fundamentally different than a community that was started by the folks at, say, Sixth Sense or Chris Walker or whoever else, right? And I think that shows in the way that I write, the way that I talk, my personality. Do you think can that work? Can it be like, this is the founder, but now the founder has multiple restaurants, and you might go there because there's like the Wolfgang Puck branded pans and stuff, right?
Right. Well, it sounds like you don't want to go the Wolfgang Puck route.
Correct.
Right? Like,
yeah, correct. My goal with that, and this is an intentional, back to strategy though. This is an intentional strategy. I think there are different plays that I would be running if I wanted it to be like Dave Gerhardt's private community, and I would be doing more courses and presenting and public speaking, and that I'm very consciously trying to make that shift. And it's like, this is a company and I run the company behind the scenes with.
Yeah, cool. This brings up a really interesting thing about strategy is there's kind of a thing in the product marketing world where it's like, hey, just tell people who it's for and what it is, right? Like that should be the strategy. Just be super clear. And the problem with that is that's just like a moment in time. That's like, this is what the product is right now. This is who it's for and what it does. A more holistic strategy will go back a step and go, what's the ethos behind the product, right? And if you can figure out what that ethos is, then you can give it to the product team and they can go make features in the future. They know how to make features in the future. If you define your strategy as like, what's the product right now? Who's it for and what does it do? You can't give that to a product team and have them go, oh, I know what to build. And so in the like a strategic narrative that we would write, it always includes the ethos. And I think what we're talking about is, the DG-ness is like the ethos, right? Like if you wanted to go to the Wolfgang Puck route where your brand is everywhere and your face is everywhere, your ethos is, let me check what my heart says and I'll just give you an answer, right? It's just like, what does my intuition say? Like, but if you want to not go where like your face is everywhere and it's just all about you, then you need to like write down like just a few things about what's the ethos of Exit 5. How do we do things differently than any other marketing community? You need to get that written down so that Danielle and the rest of your team can be like, oh, I know what to go build for this. How does that land with you? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's exactly where we're at right now as we're scaling. We're trying to think about how do we do that? I think we're still trading off of that brand and reputation today. And I don't think about differentiation a lot, actually, at all, because I think we have we have a pretty big social media following, an email list. I think we're good at promoting what we're doing. And so we have a lot of inbound demand. But as we grow and scale, yeah, I want to have a clearer point of view on like, why should you join Exit 5? How is this different? I'm sure at some point we will be disrupted or attempted to, someone's going to spin off you could just build a AI marketing community. It's like, well, am I going to join that and Exit 5? And so, yeah, it's definitely.
But I think you guys, you do think about differentiation. You're just doing it as like, okay, how do I speak in social? And that becomes your differentiation.
Absolutely. I don't have it written. I don't have it written down, but I think it's like, it's the way we write. It's the who we choose to speak at our events. How are things look and feel? I saw this post the other day. Everybody's going nuts about right now this topic of unconferences. And they're like, Exit 5's Drive was an unconference. Spring was an unconference. Chili Palooza was an unconference. And like, dude, we didn't have a meeting last year and we're like, we're going to do an unconference in Burlington, Vermont. That was just our way.
Right.
And so you're exactly right. Yeah, they're just the way that we write, the way that we talk, the way that we do things. That is the the differentiator. But yes, I don't have a way of like perfectly naming that.
Yeah, you could just write down a few things. It's like, hey, we make B2B marketing accessible, not like fancy or intellectual. Just a few things like voice is everything. We tried different ways. Like we include everybody. Like maybe you don't want everything to be a bunch of platitudes, but like just a few things to say like, yeah, what's the difference between like what you're saying, the way you teach B2B marketing and the way everybody else was doing it before. I think that's kind of your ethos.
Yeah, I'm going to write this down. I need to make a vision doc. But one of the things that you made me think of is something that I believe in is I believe in this stuff, like not necessarily, I don't think the key to great marketing is like knowing all the SaaS metrics and all of the acronyms and all of the jargon and nonsense. It's like, I like the focus of our community being like the marketing fundamentals, the principles, we might not ever have a workshop on like how to understand CAC to LTV, blah, blah, blah. Cause we're not trying to teach you how to be CFOs. We're trying to teach you how to be creative marketers. And this is the stuff that I love. And so that's kind of, embedded in the DNA of the company.
Yeah. I mean, if you don't have a strategic narrative that just tells the story of, a big change that's happened in the world, your customer who's left out in the cold in this big change, the price they pay for that being left out in the cold, the new way that you guys are building a community that nobody else has that solves that problem, a little bit about what is included in that, like what do you mean by it's a new kind of community, a little bit about the ethos of it. It could be really short, but if you had that, that'd be a killer thing to be able to give to everybody in your company. Well, I mean, mostly I want to clear up this thing about category creation, because that's been hanging out there on LinkedIn a lot. Like, hey, category creation sucks. And there's been this like trend of category creation that started in about maybe 2017 when Qualtrics came out, and it sort of like started going downhill at the beginning of 2022, where it's like, oh, this sucks, this doesn't work anymore. So it's that whole like trend of category creation has gone down for the last couple of years, but still becoming number one in a category, and the fact that the tech world proliferates categories like there's no tomorrow means, and the fact that categories are so important to customers means that it will always, now and forever, be central to how you define what your company is doing.
Do you think people got things went the other way and they stopped working because of this obsession over like naming a category, and everything has to be the naming the category of X, and we go to G2 and there's no category on G2. So now we're this is a bad example, but it's like CRM already exists as a category. Well, we're the mobile first CRM or something like that. Is it that?
Yeah, that's a big part of it. I mean, especially in the like rev ops space or marketing ops space, like those kind of SaaS tools. I mean, the name space is just so crowded, and everybody's like, okay, well, this is already taken, so we'll take this, and then let's get analysts to adopt this. It's like analysts probably are not going to adopt your category name. And not every company is like making a new category. And if you're just trying to figure out how are we going to name it something different, how are we going to name our category something different than one of our competitors, and you don't have a case for how the product is actually categorically different than that competitor, then it just falls into that like trendy category creation area.
So what advice would you give to marketers listening to this about how to approach this? Because we kind of have this fundamental truth that to win, everybody wants to win. Okay. To win, you want to be number one in a category.
Yeah. I mean, this is what I would do if I was on a marketing team. Well, first of all, it's different if you're the CMO or you work for the CMO. If you're the CMO, you want to buddy up to the CEO as much as you possibly can and sell through the idea that you need a unified strategy that is going to a single strategy that guides everything that the company does. And then if you can get sell through on that, or you verify that that's what the CEO wants to do before you take the job, then you can then become the Sherpa for the definition of that story. And you do it with product leaders and all the other leaders of the company in the room with the CEO.
That's the dream scenario. That's what I had at Drift. We had a visionary founders, product leaders who wanted to build this roadmap, who believed in basically building a roadmap in alignment with our positioning, product leaders who would have new stuff to ship and couldn't wait to run down to my desk and grab me and pull me in a meeting. But I don't think that's the norm at most companies. I think a lot of times it's like combative product leader. The product strategy doesn't actually match the marketing strategy and the vision. Maybe the CEO doesn't have a strong vision, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's some degree of you gotta kind of play the cards you're dealt, but honestly, what I would do and what I've done for my whole career, and this is maybe unreasonable, but if I was in a marketing department, I would just think like, what would I do if I was CEO of this company? And how do I need to get the mind of the customer to change in order for us to get to where we want to go? And I would write strategy as if I was the CEO of the company. And then it's like, well, if this doesn't fit into like the culture here because you told me these 12 things that really don't matter at all, and I didn't write those 12 things into the strategy, then you will find like that's not a good place for you. And hopefully, if you, for at least for me in my career, and I've been freelance more, not as much a full-time employee, but it's really served me to just try to do things as if I'm the CEO of the company. And then some places I don't fit in because I'm not like towing the company line about all the 12 different things that I was supposed to say. And then other places are like, this guy is great. This is exactly who we need. And you kind of end up in those places where there's a need for that.
That's a great line, by the way, for people listening. I marked it so we can have a clip of it. But category creation or not, this mindset of that Josh just mentioned about like, what would I do if I was in the marketing department? I would think what I would do as a CEO of the company. And don't bother with, how you'd change the finance org and how you do HR differently, just as it relates to like, how do we sell more of this thing that we're making? And this is where I always say this on this podcast, but it's like everything in marketing works. Direct mail works, TikTok works, YouTube works, SEO works, events work. You can't possibly do it all, right? But where what separates the great marketing leaders from everybody else is the great marketing leaders can have a strong point of view about how the company should be doing marketing. And then the tactics get chosen based on that strategy. It's almost always like this, to your point in the beginning about strategy. If you run or take your average post in the Exit 5 community, right, about someone who's having a hard time at work or something's not working, like if you kind of run the 5 whys on that, you kind of almost end up with like, okay, we got to have a strategy. Just something in the company strategy is busted, right?
As much as I can, I just try to follow my heart. And if I was a CMO, that's what I'd be doing. It's like, what is the thing that I'm most excited about and how would I get that down on paper if I was the CEO?
That's what the kids call vibe marketing now. You know that?
Man, I'm so glad this word vibe got so big. I mean, it's probably like jumped the shark now. In the world of communications, especially in B2B marketing, we are so over our skis about everything that's like logical and left brain cheat codes for performance marketing and all this like rational crapola. And the real magic is over on the right brain side of things, where it's like, the feeling and the magic and the vibe of things. And that word vibe is so great because it basically says like there's something that's beyond logic that's really powerful here. And I think all of the great marketing organizations get to that place where there's a kind of magic in the communications that you couldn't just put in a spreadsheet.
I'm not good at marketing. I'm good at this. I'm not good at spreadsheets. I'm not good at the metrics, but put me in a room and I will give you this, right? The vibes, the intuition. And I think especially in a world where a lot of marketing is going to be, automated and done with AI and there's not a lot of soul in it. Like I was lucky to work for people at Drift like David and Elias, who are the founders there, who understood that a big part of the job in marketing is like taste making, right? And so there's 2 sandwich shops in town, same ingredients, same everything. One of them just makes a better sandwich because the woman is just better. She's just better. Like she just knows how to do it better, right? And it's like that is what got me into this. Oh, I got into this job because I was broke and I needed to get a job, and I turned out to be good at it. But that's the fun part, right? That's like your roots as a creative, right? We need to bring more of this into marketing today. And it's even, do you think this sole piece of this, is this even more important because of what's happening with AI?
Absolutely. I mean, there's a guy, a neuroscientist, that wrote a book about left brain versus right brain, and what he says is that the left brain sees the world as a machine, a bunch of it's kind of like a spreadsheet, a bunch of connected parts with cause and effect and mechanical, but it's ultimately dead. It's an ultimately dead way to see the world. Whereas the right brain sees the world alive. It's energetic, it's holistic, it's vibey, it's magical, it's ineffable. You can't really quite put words to it. And what he says is our culture is just like continuing to get more and more left brain as we go. And if you look on LinkedIn, like all these cheat codes for cold email success and things like that, it just gets more and more left brained. And I think that for people like you, and maybe for me, the more vibey you are, the more you can kind of follow your heart and know that communications has to have some like soul to it. You're just going to get more and more valuable as we go.
Okay, what else should I have asked you, or should we have talked about in the last 5 minutes before we wrap?
Oh man, someday I want to talk with you on the podcast about mental health, but I don't think we have time for that. We could also talk about weightlifting.
Let's spend 10 minutes there. I just got great feedback. I did this podcast with Emma Stratton, and we ended up talking a lot about personal stuff. And so let's go. We got 10 minutes left. Let's do a couple minutes on mental health, and let's do a couple minutes on weightlifting.
Okay. All right. I mean, if I'm going to talk about mental health, I would go back to when I was 30. I had a nervous breakdown, and I was trying to do way too much in my career and trying to make everybody happy, and I just completely lost it. And I went to therapy, and I started going to psychoanalysis. So I went to therapy 5 days a week for 19 years. And then just at the end of that, I went I started doing meditation retreats. I started doing like 3 or 4 weeks of meditation retreat every year for the last 10 years. And, I also experienced a series of traumas when I was a kid. And so that's really what I was doing, is I was trying to like work through that. And so like a lot of the posts I do on LinkedIn, I'm always trying to make sure that it's sort of like on the positive side from a mental health perspective. Like I used to go to LinkedIn and see how successful everybody else was, and I'd like beat myself up over it, And so I'm always trying to, when I post on LinkedIn, I'm always trying to say like, hey, I'm not special. You can do this too. I'm trying to always raise other people up. And I feel like you do that as well.
Yeah, it's a slippery slope. It's very easy social media is crazy because you can basically dunk on anybody for anything at any time. I'll be like, the sky is blue. And someone's like, well, easy for you to say as a white male in tech. And I'm like, whoa, wait, what does this have to do with anything? Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
And then my day is just like, I'm talking to my wife. I'm like, am I a good person? Like my whole day is, I do take personally what people say to me. But yeah, there is a whole world of people who just use LinkedIn to just dunk on other marketers. And I've done that in the past, where just kind of criticize other people's marketing strategy as a way to teach. But I don't want that. I don't want that energy around me. There's a whole world of people get really upset about like how people do LinkedIn. I'm like, I don't care. Don't click on their things then, and you won't see it. Like curate your own feed. I like to use it as it's a creative outlet for me to write about my business and talk about the things that I'm doing. Also,
I was just going to say, the way that I try to it's important. We're creating a category design studio. It's important when you're creating a category that you have a contrarian point of view, right? And so definitely I'll come out against a certain maybe left brain or boring way of doing strategy. and I won't call out people specifically, but I can be negative about that stuff in my post. But then I always make sure that like all of my comments are positive. Even if I disagree with somebody, I'll like call out like, oh, I really like the fact that I like the post. I love your content or whatever. But I see it differently. I see it like this. And I think if you're on there and you're doing founder brand as a play, that it's great to be a little bit contrarian in the post, but in the comments, just be a sweetheart.
Yeah, I like to be silly in the comments. That's my move. Like,
Yeah.
I like to
And
just write. I'm usually responding to comments like later in the day, and I'll just say funny things or try to be funny. And I think injecting your humor and personality into it is also very disarming. But I'm glad you brought up the topic of mental health. I definitely we do have people. Everybody wants to talk about that. I think there's a great awakening, at least in the world of work, where people in tech and wherever, any job really, the world is just more open to understanding that like if you're not good in your body and your mind, then you can't be great, and you got to take care of yourself first. And I think I can be very hard on myself, and like like my life is so easy, like I didn't even go to war, I'm on Zoom calls all day writing on LinkedIn, like how soft am I, this is such an easy life. And I try to not do that as much because I'm like, no, you know what? I'm here for a reason. I have a purpose. Like, I want to uplift people around me. I want to build something meaningful. Like, I can give back to my community because of the time that I'm able to get from my job. And I love hearing about people's, journeys with mental health and personal development. I'm a huge believer in that. And if you invest in yourself, you can write your own rules. Like, I don't roll my eyes at any of that personal development stuff. It's the most important topic there is.
absolutely. And I feel that, you have a large audience on LinkedIn. I have a growing audience on LinkedIn. And, I feel like we have a kind of ethical responsibility to not put ourselves out as like we're up here, because there's a lot of people that are using social media to just like beat themselves up. So, and I think the way that you do it is great, because you never make it seem like, hey, I'm up here and you're down there.
I don't, but you know what's hard though? There are people who don't know me, but they project that onto who they think that I am because I am a tech bro and I'm bald. Like like dude, most of the people that I meet in an event in person, they're always like, "Oh, you're much more likable in person than I thought you would be."
A backhanded compliment.
I know, and I'm like, "Is that wait a second, but is that on me or is that on you? Is that like you reading
Uh-huh.
my messages?" But
Yeah.
I even joke with my team, right? Like in Slack, for example, like the way that I write and communicate in Slack, if you don't have the context of like how I talk, my intonation, my sense of humor, it's very difficult to so like, we got to be hanging out in person. Even if you have a remote company, you got to be like cementing who somebody is in person, and then you
Hmm.
can read their messages with that context now.
Yeah.
And wait, so you did did you say 19 years of daily therapy,
Yeah. 5 days a week. Psychoanalysis.
psychoanalysis?
Yeah.
Wow. Good for you, man. It's just like any habit, to put that in 19 years of consistency is probably quite literally like rewiring your brain. I'm sure there's still things you have to work on, but like,
Yeah. I mean, the greatest gift is like, I have two daughters, um, 11 and 13, and I just have a great relationship with them. And that never would have been possible without really doing some work on myself.
and do you meditate every day?
I do. Yeah.
Is there a better time of day to do that?
First thing in the morning is the best time. I make
Just
some
wake up.
coffee. I actually I'll bring my coffee with me. So I'll sit there, I'll have a cup of coffee, I'll meditate, take a little sip after a couple minutes, meditate
Do you have
some
to
more.
get better at it? I feel like I would like to meditate first thing in the morning, but maybe it's a false belief. I feel like I would just go right back to sleep. Is it something you have to work through?
Have you tried that?
No, obviously I'm giving advice on something I've never done.
I would try it. I mean,
I
for
like it in the
me,
middle of the day as like as a reset, but I do feel like if I started my day slower in that capacity, it would be beneficial. I can 100% see the benefits of doing it.
well, the coffee helps me.
Yeah, but no. The Huberman says you can't have coffee first thing. You need to get outside, view sunlight, sauna, cold exposure, then you can have your coffee. So my whole morning routine would be out of whack. Yeah, so First thing in the morning, meditate. Okay. And then you mentioned weightlifting. Sorry, quite literally in the last 4 minutes, I just got my son's cold on this podcast. So mark it down, let it be known. I can't pass it through you. It's just a nose. I'm just a tech bro working through some illnesses. I'll be good. What's your relationship with weightlifting?
I'm 6'4". I've been skinny my whole life. Then I started putting on some weight. So tall, skinny, and fat is like not a good look. And I turned 50 and I was like, I don't know, 235 pounds and not much muscle. And I was just like, okay, something's got to change. So I got into weightlifting, and man, it's been the best thing ever. I didn't realize that weightlifting is so much better for you than like cardio. I didn't understand that, how it changes your metabolism and how it burns calories even on your day off because your body's trying to like build muscle. But I just love it. I don't really feel like I'm a weightlifting guy necessarily. Like it feels weird to even say like, oh yeah, I'm really into weightlifting, but I think it's great. I'm not like pushing like really heavy weight. I'd say like on squats, my high would be like 240 for 4.
That's pretty good for a 6'4" guy. You got a long way to go in getting that squat. Yeah.
Yeah. So where are you at with squats?
There's definitely a trend of more people being willing to lift weights, and I think the narrative used to be cardio, and now it's kind of like, no, you gotta lift weights. It's like the number one. I think it was like the number one cause of the reason people get injured when they get older is because they fall and they break something because you don't have enough bone density. I try to push everybody in my life to lift, and it doesn't take much. But we don't have the time. We got all this other stuff. People can't lift. I get it. Excuses.
Oh man. I mean, we're talking about mental health. The happiest I ever am is right after I lift weights.
That's why I have to work out in the morning. I have to move my day around it because I literally am a better person to work with and I'm more creative. But I can, if I like were to wake up and get right to my Slack messages and email, I'm going to be an asshole. Fact. It's just a fact. I'm going to reply short. I'm going to say things I didn't mean. If I can just wait on that stuff for a couple hours and I get my workout in first, I have my coffee, I have breakfast. Then when I approach my work, it is a completely different person.
Yeah. It's crazy how when you feel good with yourself, you're just like so much kinder, better person to everybody else.
Yeah. And look, I became I've worked out my whole life, but I think when my tune on it changed was after having kids. I didn't have the kids. I was there for it. But, and I just was like, look, I got 20 minutes a day. I'm going to do push-ups. I got a pull-up bar in my house. I couldn't go to the gym anymore, and it was COVID. I got a pull-up bar in my house. I got a kettlebell. I just did push-ups, pull-ups, and squats and kettlebell stuff every day for like 2 or 3 years, and that was good enough. And I have a lot of dad friends, any parent really, and a lot of people feel like they don't have the time to work out. You know what I'll do? My kid will be in the bath and he wants me to hang out with him while he takes a bath. I will knock out my push-ups and pull-ups and squats right there with him in the bathroom. 12 minutes.
That's great. That's the way to do it.
Better than nothing, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think I told you on email, I was just at a month-long meditation retreat. So a month of silent meditation. And I did it a year ago too. And I lost like 12 pounds going to that retreat. And probably like half or almost half of that was muscle. It's like, and my lifts went way down. So this year I brought these like heavy weights in my car. I had my car in the parking lot. And every day I took a break from meditating. I walked down to the car, opened the trunk, and did like 15, 20 minutes of weightlifting.
Just like straight up monk mode, just like working out in the parking lot.
I had I couldn't, the squats, it's like hard to have that much weight. So I had 2 50-pound dumbbells that would just like lift up on my shoulders and I would squat that. And it wasn't quite enough weight, but like it was enough to keep my squat only went down 10 pounds from the time that I left to the time that I got back.
It's enough if you get the reps. If you try to go, if you're like, I'm going to try to do 25 reps right now, and then it's plenty. So you were away for a whole month?
Yes.
Meditating?
Yes.
Silent for a month?
Yes. You meet with a teacher every couple of days and you have like a 15-minute meeting, but otherwise you're silent.
And what is that? What does that do to you? What do you feel after you come back with just this like unbelievable sense of calm?
Okay, so here's what it does. It's like you could imagine that we don't know this, but in our normal lives, it's like there's like 1,000 blenders on. Like our minds are they're so noisy, and we don't even realize it. So when you go to a meditation retreat like that, or let's say you just meditate at home, it's like 5 blenders turn off if you meditate for 20 minutes. You're like, oh, this is nice. It's only 995 blenders are on. But if you go to a meditation retreat for that long and you get 2-3 weeks into it, a week into it, it's like, oh, there's only 500 blenders on. And 3 weeks into it, it's like, there's like 5 blenders on. And it's crazy. In your mind, everything is like crystal clear and there's like very little in there. And it's the best feeling in the world. Like there is no drug that feels that good. But that is not the reason why you do that. The reason why you do it is it gets you incredibly relaxed. And as you relax, you come into contact with a lot of things that you kind of like hold down, feelings that have been kept at bay for a long time. And as you come into contact with those negative feelings, they start to dissipate, they dissolve, and they go away. And you feel a little bit more like yourself after you do that. Now you really see the effects. You can't really understand the effects while it's going on because there's these other like this crazy good feeling or whatever. But if you then go like 3 months into the future, like, I'm just like 3% more calm. I'm 3% less likely to say something mean. I'm 3% more okay being who I am. And that 3%, it really makes a difference in life.
When you mentioned the blenders, is that like the feeling of like, I'm talking to you right now, but in the back of my mind, I just like, wait, did I pay my cell phone bill? And why is my cell phone bill $100? Wasn't it usually $98? And then like the rest of my afternoon, I got to spend like dealing with Verizon when it's like, really, what does that matter?
Exactly. When you're like on your iPhone all the time, I'm like, oh God, I gotta do this. Oh, and now I got to go to my computer. Like, oh, I opened up this app, but I can't remember why I opened it up. Now I'm doing something else. Like I was going to go to YouTube to search for this thing, but I'm like, it's kind of like that. And then it's also just all the tension that you feel in your body around some of these things. Oh, I got to do all this. And like everything's really grippy. And it's, you can't really see how noisy it is until you go meditate for a couple weeks and you'd be like, oh my God, I can't believe this.
And is that hard to be away for a month from your family?
Yeah, my wife is like I'm so lucky because she holds it down. We got a crazy 80-pound dog too. So she's, taking care of the kids and the dog and everything. And it's easy for me compared to like how hard it is for them. But I call them once a week. They have a landline. Like you give up your phone. So there's no phone. You give up your iPhone. So I'll be off my iPhone for the month. And then they have a landline. So I can call every Sunday and I have a conversation with my family.
And is it just like one of those things in life where like, yes, it sucks to be away for a month, but you know that if you do, you need to put this deposit into the bank for the month because the rest of the year is going to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Like if you just imagine like, oh, I can give my wife a better husband. I can give my daughters a better father, and I can feel like more comfortable in my shoes like 11 months out of the year. It's like, that's a kind of a no brainer. But at the same time, I also want to say like, it's extremely enjoyable to be on a retreat like that. It's like very hard work, but there's a lot of contentment that comes with it.
Yeah. I would love to take my phone and just give it away for a month. That'd be amazing. Take my phone, put it in a box. I don't want it.
It's so cool. Like when you get your phone back, you're just like, I don't even want that shit.
All right, Josh Lowman, this was great. Went in a bunch of different directions, but this is what's great about this podcast. We come on, Josh is an Exit 5 member. We hang out, we talk about marketing, we talk about life. Thanks for listening to this episode. Go find Josh on LinkedIn. Even though he's very wise and calm, it won't hurt to get him like 7 more LinkedIn followers. So go find him on LinkedIn, connect with him, check out Goldfront. And send Josh and I a message or DM us separately. And I have been enjoying talking a little bit more about life outside of the marketing stuff with folks on here because we're all people. We like to hang out, connect, learn from each other. So share some feedback with me. And then make sure you join Exit 5. You'll see Josh in there. He's an active member. We love that. He hasn't been active in a while because he was on his meditation retreat, but he'll come back soon, I hope. So, all right, Josh, good to see you, man. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you so much. I love being on your show because I'm a DG super fan.
Oh, stop that.